there are stories coming out that the Blue Jays could be the lead go-getter of landing Juan Soto. And I don't know what the truth is, because we thought that last year with Shohei Ohtani. He was on his way over there. He was flying all the way to, Blue Jaysville or Toronto because he was about to sign his contract. And then there were stories coming out that he was in LA and he was talking to the Angels and the Dodgers. So I don't know what is the truth when it comes to these stories. I do believe both New York teams are in the running for him. Now, as far as the Red Sox are concerned, I could see the Red Sox trying to make a deal. I could never see the Red Sox giving him a 15 or more year deal. I can't see the Red Sox doing that. So I think they're absolutely out when it comes to the trend of landing the AKA superstar player in Juan Soto. So I do believe both two New York teams are in the mix. I also believe the Blue Jays. I do not believe the Dodgers are in the mix, because Juan Soto came out and said, and Scott Boras came out and said, that he is not signing anything with deferred money. So I think the Dodgers are completely out of this conversation as well. I think both the Dodgers and the Red Sox are completely out of it. But Juan Soto is a superstar player. We know what he can do. We saw what he can do with the Yankees. We saw how important he was against the Cleveland Indians. And he helped lead the Yankees all the way to the World Series. There's no question Juan Soto is one of those players. He's also very young. He's in the prime of his career, but he is probably going to be a designated hitter in the next 5 to 6 years. He's not an elite outfielder. I don't care what anybody says. He's a good outfielder. He proved to me this year as a Yankee that he could play much better than people thought in the outfield. But again, it is Yankee Stadium. It is a small field. You don't have to run that much. I mean, if you're playing in Citi Field or you're playing in one of those big ballparks, it could be problems for a guy like Juan Soto. Nevertheless, he's a great hitter. He's got one of the best eyes in baseball. He doesn't strike out much. He puts his barrel on the bat. He's sensational. Now, again, signing him to 15 years, I've always believed Brian Cashman tries to stay away from that. He came out years and years ago with Robinson Cano, and Robinson Cano wanted that 10 or more year contract. And I remember Brian Cashman coming out and saying that there is no way the Yankees are ever going to sign another deal 10 years or more. I remember it. And that's why they decided to go with Jacoby Ellsbury. And we all know what a debacle that was for the New York Yankees.
Turned out great.
And Robinson Cano went to Seattle, and then the whole steroid story came out, and he wasn't the player he once was. Now, I'm not saying Robinson Cano wasn't a great player. He was a great player for the Yankees, and he was one of the better second basemen I can remember for the New York Yankees. But I think Juan Soto is looking at both New York teams. I think they're the teams that he is more interested in playing for. I could see Juan Soto taking a 12-year contract with the Yankees instead of a 15-year contract. I think the Mets are going to have to overdo it if he's going to go to Citi Field and play for the New York Mets. I understand Lindor and him are butt buddies, and they love to hang out with one another in the offseason. I've heard a lot of stories about him and Lindor. They work out together. There's a lot I've heard about him and Lindor came out, and there are people coming out from the Mets organization saying that Lindor has been pitching Juan Soto to Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, and Stearns. So I don't know what is going to happen. Do I believe this could happen in the next week? I do not. I do not believe that Juan Soto is going to sign with any of these teams by the end of this week or even in a week. I could see it before, and Jabba, we've been talking about it. I think it'll be before Christmas. I do believe that. I think that the winter meetings are about to start. That could shake things up. I do still believe that there's a lot that has to be negotiated in this contract. If he goes back to the Yankees, do the Yankees give him more money at the tail end of the contract because of Giancarlo Stanton and the Aaron Judge contract and the Garrett Cole? There's a lot to be negotiated here if it's the New York Yankees. With the Mets, it's pretty self-explanatory. The Mets, Scherzer's off the board. Verlander's off the board. There's a lot of money off the board for the New York Mets. So the Mets automatically could say, hey, we'll give you 65. We'll give you $60 million a year. Just come over here and play at Citi. So there's a lot of questions right now, but I do believe it's narrowed down to 3 teams. I do believe it's the Blue Jays. I do believe it's the Yankees, and I do believe it's the Mets.
The Blue Jays scare me for some reason. I don't know why.
It's a desperate GM. It's really
yeah. Well, and it's that too, right? And I agree with that. But based on what all we've heard too, like in the way that Soto has said these things, it's kind of like it's who's the biggest whale that's going to give me the money, right? And it's not about winning because he's already won. So that's the kind of thing where I'm like, you can't cross out. The Blue Jays, I think, obviously they can do it. They're desperate. They need somebody that. But you also look, they have 6 guys, 6 young guys that are going to be up for contract in 2025, 2026. And when you see it, when it goes that way, it's like, okay, are we going to put all our eggs in one basket and hope that, oh, well, if he comes, then they're going to stay? Well, are they going to be able to get paid at that point? And so I really don't know if the Blue Jays are really in it unless they just absolutely throw a crazy number, right? I think it's really honestly down to the 2 New York teams. That's it.
Really?
I think it is. I think the Blue Jays, with what they have coming up, and if they really want to create, like, and I'm not saying Juan Soto isn't one of the best to play, right, but if you're going to sign some of those guys that they have built, I mean, you're going to have Springer out the books, Bichette, all these guys, Guerrero.
Yeah.
Do you want to put, like, you want to have that? So I don't think their number would be big enough, because now if you want to keep him, well, who do you have around him? Does he care about that? And so there's so many aspects going into it. Do you really think those guys would sign and take less money than what their market value is to play with a Juan Soto to try to win when their pitching staff is
awful?
They have a good farm system. The Blue Jays do have a good farm system. They have like 3 really good pitchers they're going to be called up very, very soon. So I know farm systems mean nothing. I know a lot of people say, hey, you know what? They're not in the majors, so we don't know what they're going to be. But they're high-profile guys that are in the top 100 in the baseball. What do they call that? The pipeline prospect, picture. So who knows? But I do believe that the Blue Jays are definitely still in the mix. They are going to throw him a lot of money. And Scott Boras, he's going to play both New York teams against one another and the Blue Jays. And if the Blue Jays offer him a longer contract, why not? Why wouldn't he go over there? Because still, if they split out the contract where it makes sense, you could still sign Guerrero. You can still sign Bichette. Could you imagine the middle of that lineup? Bichette, Guerrero, and Soto? I mean, that's an unbelievable lineup. And you're talking about probably it is murderer's row as far as what we've seen with the Blue Jays. The last time we've seen a lineup like that was when the Blue Jays went all the way to the World Series and won with Joe Carter, Roberto Alomar. I mean, that was a great lineup, by the way. John Olerud. I mean, that was a really, really, really good lineup.
But at the same time, I don't think he's going to take deferred money. So
no, he's not.
But Shed or Guerrero might to get Soto.
They might, yeah.
And if they do that, that's the only aspect that I see, Speedy, in that aspect is if they do get him, it's like, okay, well, I'll sign that deal and I'll defer 65 million or 80 million, whatever the number is. I mean, because they're going to go on market value based upon what they are. But would you do it if you don't get them? Now it's like you lose everybody. So they're still in for the aspect of they can now be like, hey, look at some of these contracts. Look at what's happened. Why are these guys signing with a certain team that's already loaded anyways? And now it's like you're still going to get paid and get paid for a long time. And we're going to touch on this later, so I'm not going to go into it. But why wouldn't you, if we can get a guy like that, why wouldn't it be like, you know what? Hey, let me and they have earned their stripes to be able to go to the front office and be like, hey, you know what? If we get this guy, I will make it work. Like, I want to win. But if winning's not what they want to do and they just want to make the most money, then hell, I don't know.
There's a lot of desperate organizations. And I think the Blue Jays are one of those desperate organizations that are going to bend any possible way to get what they want. And I think the Mets too. I think they're very desperate. And they're still going to sign Pete Alonso. I know everybody's sitting there. Well, if they get Juan Soto, they're not signing Pete Alonso. I am telling you right now, Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie is going to open up the checkbook this year. I said that. David Stern didn't open up that checkbook in the offseason last year. He pretty much nitpicked who he wanted, taking contracts, small contracts, 1-year contracts, and he pretty much, he hit on some of them. Nevertheless, I think the Mets are going to spend a lot of money this offseason, and he'll go after Juan Soto first, then Pete Alonso, and then probably Corbin Burns. We would have thought that Corbin Burns would have been the first pitcher off the board. He might be the last one, especially what Blake Snell just got. Blake Snell got a good contract, but it's deferred. So, I mean, I would have never thought that
the Mets got Frankie Montas, didn't they?
Yes.
Give me a break. Are you
Yankees
kidding me?
legend Frankie Montas.
How in the hell did he get $36 million?
Uncle Stevie is really reaching right now. And he's probably saying, David, go ahead. Open up the pockets, baby. And David's open up the pockets. As we all know, David Stearns has no problems opening up the pockets that doesn't belong to him. So,
and he was in the front office that I've dealt with, and I get it, but I'm like, you're paying $36 million for that?
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.